Welcome to Money Chats and Mishaps, a podcast by Fam Brokers hosted by Renae Long, the director and founder of Fam Brokers.
Thank you, Miss Alison Wheeler, for coming in again. So, Alison's here today to talk about some trends that are happening in business and commercial sort of interests, and I'm going to talk about some property and things like that, and we're going to bounce ideas. I've had a lot of commercial and business clients either purchasing property or not. It's that failure to launch. Because at the moment I've had a lot, and I've spoken to you the last couple of months, and you've had some as well. So we both have clients, and Alison Wheeler is in my opinion, a great business coach because she's relentless, she's strong, and she doesn't give up. There's a lot of people that try once, try twice, never try again, and then say, I couldn't do it. And I also get a lot of people, clients included, that are your failure to launch. And what I call a failure to launch is that person that wants to. You work and work for weeks and months and months and months, but nothing changes. And then they're like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. And now I can't afford to do this, and now I can't afford to do that. The more you wait, the more it costs you.
Oh, look, time is a killer, right? It doesn't, adding time to things doesn't help. People think, oh, well, I'll think about it. If adding time to a decision, adding time to anything is the most costly thing that you can do. It takes a nanosecond to make a decision. Okay, you might not know how to execute all the parts.
And you might need some research.
Correct.
But
you have to make the decision first, which is the taking the time out of it that you're going to commit to doing it. And then you work out the how. But you can't work out the how until and what's the point? Right, of trying to get, it's like, oh, well, when it's perfect, then I'll do it. This whole perfectionism rubbish that people go through, it's so like, well, there is nothing.
Exactly. You do with a lot of business expanding. So I had a client that was paying nearly $10,000 a month for their lease. I said, if you buy a property which was very similar to theirs, it wasn't as new, it was 10 years older. However, for them to purchase it, they had the money in the bank. They also didn't need to put in as much as they thought. And then they were asset backed, and they would only pay about $6,900 or $800 a month in the repayments rather than nearly $10,000. Now that's insane. Commercial property has creeped up as well, but they wouldn't do it, even in black and white. So when you see business for the failure to launch, like that example, and then they came back to me last month and said, okay, we're ready to buy. Well, now it's going to be nearly $8,000.
Yeah, there's so much more cost in that because of the delay. Every delay has a cost. It has a consequence.
100%.
Now, that generally in business is going to cost you in dollars, very evidently, but it can cost you in a lot of other ways as well. And it's this lack of confidence that people have. More and more, I see it more and more. That is the trend of this confidence to back themselves. And I don't know.
What do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a combination of a few things. I think people are very indoctrinated into not thinking for themselves anymore and not trusting themselves. Walking around with your head in a screen. I think AI I love AI. It's a brilliant helper, but there is a level where it takes away your actual reasoning and thinking. Yeah. Right. And so then some people have already lost that ability to forecast, to think forward. But the biggest thing is trusting yourself. Like, know that you can make a decision, 100%. Right? And if it goes bad, which some decisions are going to go bad, not all decisions are going to go your way, then you make it go right. You fix it. Nothing with what we learn. That's how you learn.
If we don't fail, we don't succeed.
Correct.
And if we sit in the safe space all of our lives, we're not going to have what we want.
Absolutely. And I hear this a lot. The other way I hear what you're saying is failure to launch. The other similar verbiage I hear at the moment is I'd just like everything to stay the same. But it can't. There's no such thing. Like look at
the property market.
Exactly. Or look at a tree.
Yeah.
Right. Even the
most simple,
nothing stays the same. So when I hear a business owner saying I want it to stay the same, I know they are only maybe 3 months of tanking, they're in trouble, and they probably haven't looked at their financials. Because if they're wanting to keep things the same, I often ask, well, when was the last time you did a price review or things like that? Because the cost of living's gone up, and they haven't then adjusted to that. So they're eating into their profit margins in order to go, oh, but I don't want to lose my customers. So you'd rather lose your business?
Yeah, I had a muesli oats manufacturer that they hadn't changed their prices in 10 years. And I'm like, all these fees, we're not making as much, we had to put staff off. And now we're under the pump, and now we need to buy these $1 million machines. And I'm like, okay, so what's changed in your business? And I'm not a coach, but I've got to look at the finances and go through things. Okay, well, yeah, we can juggle that around and change this, but you can see on a P&L where things are changing and why. And putting in for a commercial loan is very different than a residential loan. So you do a business proposal. So you need to know, industry, the 5 C's, character, can they afford it, what's going on. If it's a 2-year-old company, it's a lot harder to get the business loan than it is if it's a 30-year-old company that are solicitors and they've grown and they've just bought a smaller solicitors. But that failure to launch and sitting in that one spot, if you don't review and get better, then you shrivel and die. That's what a plant does.
Well, 100%. I think that as a business owner and as a business, you have to always be looking at expansion.
Yeah.
In any way, shape or form, because otherwise you are literally shrinking. There's actually not an in-between. And it's normal, I think, that we have got a little confused somehow on what's normal. It's normal to improve.
Yeah.
That's actually normal for us to incrementally improve over time. It's not normal to stay the same or to decline. And then I think a lot of people don't know what to do. They go into panic mode when they see a decline. And one of the first things I see businesses cut is their marketing and promotion when they see a decline. But that's the very lifeblood of their business. It's like, well, cut expenses somewhere else. But you need to market and promote. You might pivot the way.
Buy cheaper toilet paper.
That's exactly.
I know, but the toilet paper does
go to instant coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it tastes terrible, but you'll cope with it for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
These
when we all meet bonus, the machine's coming back.
100%. And I think the other part too, Renae, where people do get into that kind of mode of failure to launch, is I actually think they're not clear on their target or their goal. It is amazing how many people are not clear, like not crystal clear on their target or their goal. So, for example, you're saying, you're talking about this commercial property that you were speaking about. If they were 100% crystal clear on what their goal was for both revenue, business growth,
but it
and
had great business
profit,
growth. It had another shed at the back that they could have turned into something.
But you can see the vision, right?
Yeah.
See, but the thing is that they haven't bought into their own vision. And so if they aren't crystal clear on what that is, then they will failure to execute because they're not clear on what the next steps are. They're not clear on why. There's not that drive to change. And I see that a lot. So it's like, okay, what are your goals? I ask that to literally every client over and over. Okay, what are your goals? What's your target? What's your goals? What's your target? Oh, I'd like to be successful. How the hell are you going to measure that? What does that mean? Pray tell me, what does that mean?
Tangible.
Yeah, you can't measure that because what that means to you and what that means to me is totally different.
Yeah.
And half the people haven't even defined what that means to them.
Yeah.
So then, if someone's trying to take like a commercial property purchase through their decision-making matrix, which they probably don't have, but let's say hopefully they do, part of that, the decision-making matrix and their priority matrix comes from knowing what their goals are.
Yeah.
Because then they can just filter it through. It's like, then it's based not off emotion, it's based off logical decision to advance you towards something. Yes, these numbers make sense. Okay, I'm crapping myself.
When you have because often when there's 2 or 3 partners, there's one more dominant, more passionate, riskier partner. And then you've got 1 or 2 others that isn't risky. They're quite risk adverse. So when there's that dynamic, how do you deal with this situation?
Well, you've got to find out who the decision maker of those 3 is. Who's the main influencer? Because they're going to be ultimately it may be the person that's making the most noise, but ultimately out of those three, there's usually an integrator, and it's probably them, right? Who you got the person who's on this end, the end of like, let's take every risk possible. Then you've got the person on the other end, let's take no risk whatsoever. And then usually you have an integrator in the middle who can help those people talk and communicate. And they're usually the most influential generally. So it's about finding out who is the actual decision maker within that matrix, because that person is going to influence the overall.
Because each of those people, I find, think that they are the influencer.
Of course they do.
But when you talk to them, it's like, well, no. It's like the old adage, one of my girlfriends is Greek, and she said, Greek mother, she's going to turn the head of the dad wherever you need to go, right?
100%. You can be turning, exactly. One person's going to be the person out of those three that is the final decision maker. It won't, as much as they'll say it's by consensus, there'll be one person who's predominantly driving that, and that's the thing is you've got to find who that is. Because if you can't identify that and then have that person bought in, then behind you have that conversation, they all agree, you walk out, and then 2 days later you get a phone call, oh look, we think we're going to wait. Because they've now had this conversation since you left, because you haven't addressed whatever that particular person's concerns are, then they'll wrap it all up with the other two, and they'll
comply. If you address their concerns and they still won't go ahead, what do you do?
Well, then I would go back to what their goals are. What are you actually trying to achieve here?
So if somebody is in that position and they come to you, how can they contact you?
They can jump on my socials, is probably easiest, which is the Alison Wheeler Coaching. Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll find me there. Facebook, that's probably the easiest. My website, thealisonwheeler.com. They can contact me there as well. I'm more than happy to have a chat with anyone. There's an assessment you can go through as well to look at, the overall health of your business.
Because I find business at the moment is that failure to launch. I've got so many clients failure to launch with some things, and some things they just run with and you think, oh wow, and then they need money for a project to expand, but they often come to me 3 to 6 months too late. So do you find that with you, or do they come to you when they...
Well, it varies, right? Ideally, they would come to me before it's too late. But sometimes people try and hold on till bitter end. Oh, no, I can work it. I should be able to work this out. Or I'm too embarrassed to sell someone that I'm not actually coping. Because the bigger your business gets, the more of a silo it is, right? And the more successful your business gets, the more of a silo. So you can't talk to your staff anymore because they're outside of that. Maybe you talk to the accountant, but they're usually looking at the past, not the future.
Exactly.
You don't want to tell your significant other because you don't want to stress them out. Can't talk to your kids. So who the hell are you talking to, right? You, yourself, and you created the problem in the first place. You're probably not going to solve it with the same thinking. So often it's, smart business owners get help early, and then some will wait until it's breaking point and then ask for help. Now, sometimes you can save that, but other times it is too late, and that's so unfortunate because it doesn't need to be. It doesn't. You don't have to wait till everything breaks to get help. In fact, it's so much better
to ask for help.
Well, it's okay to get help when everything's working well.
Yeah, and if you review things, or if you have a look at things when they're going well, there's so many better outcomes that happen that I've seen.
100%. It's so much easier at that point. Yes, it can still be saved a lot of the time, but it's easier because the person's also not so stressed out either. So they've got a bit more emotional bandwidth and thinking bandwidth to be able to move and pivot. But sometimes it does have to get to that point of desperation before someone's willing to pivot. They actually even
so how do
can
you find
see
it
it
when people come to you with that at that point.
Yeah, that's really challenging for someone. I find it very challenging when a business owner comes in that level of crisis, but for me it's speed. That is when speed to execution has to be so fast, and it's preparing that person to be ready to act at the speed they need to, despite of where they're feeling emotionally, because if they don't move fast, then they won't have a business for much longer. So
well, it's the same as we've spoken before about people not having policies in place.
Yes.
I mean, you can't drive down the road without adhering to road rules.
Yep.
In a business, you have your own road rules. But if it's not in writing, then where do people get your policies, practices, procedures, your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, things like that? I mean, sometimes it's that helpful help of identifying the stuff that could be in there, should be in there, but isn't in there.
100%. And you know, one of the biggest complaints that you hear, or so I sit there, my staff. I can't get anyone to work. My staff. And it's like, but do your staff actually know how to succeed in their role? Mm-hmm. Do they have SOPs? Do they have KPIs? Do they have a game to play?
Have they trained?
Yeah. Have you trained them, or have you just abdicated and gone, here you go, off you go. You know what you're doing, right? And we wonder why we wonder why they produce something completely different, or we keep getting terrible people applying. It's like, well, write a better ad. Right, because at the end of the day, it's now a sales and marketing thing to attract staff. Mm-hmm. Also, people don't work for shitty bosses. So sometimes you just have to take a hard look, and that's a harsh reality, a hard look at yourself as the employer and going, well, who am I turning up as?
Yeah.
Am I actually being someone who's someone else would want to work for? Would I even want to work for myself? And half the time the answer to that's no. So it's like working with a person, the business owner, to be a lot clearer in their communication as well. And there's the adage, you've got to tell someone something 4 times in order for it to sink in. So that's tell me, show me, let me, coach me, right? So you tell them how to do it. You let them go through the process whilst you're there holding their hand. Then, they go through that process, you coach and correct them, and then, off they go. But that also needs to be documented. We don't just tell people verbally. We also need to make sure they actually understood and not just go, oh, yeah, yes, I know how to do that. Well, you don't know whether they do or don't. They've just said yes. How often do people just go, oh, yes, and it's just a reaction?
How many times do you ask your kids, have you done this? Will you do this? Yep. Do you understand what? Yep. Do you know where you went wrong? Yep.
Yep. And all of that is no.
All is no.
All of that is a no.
Yeah.
All right. Unless you go, okay, explain to me what you understood. And they're like,
what are you going to change the next one? If you don't like your grade, what are you going to change to the next one?
Exactly.
I don't know. But they said yes. They learnt from their mistake or whatever. But it's trying to get that other bit across. But, yeah.
Communication is a big key. And that is the thing with when people fail to launch, they're out of communication with something. So one, they're out of communication with you as to what's really going on, right? Or they're out of communication with their goal, and they often start to shut down. They're not communicating.
When I was in HR, so years and years and years ago, I was actually talking to another senior HR professional. We're having a bit of lunch and a bit of catch up. We'd both gone to QCAT and QIC, gone to the commission, and we were downstairs having lunch, and we had to go up for our different things. And she worked for a retail premise, and there was a gentleman that got fired because he was stealing. And in his rebuttal, and demanded to go to Fair Work, in his rebuttal, he said, but I was only stealing the ugly stuff. In the policy, it talked about theft, and the examples were all for the better goods. So he didn't steal anything, he stole what was outside of policy. And in his mind, and communication, when they did their thing, they never talked about. And then she'd told me that she had worked for a large company, a multinational, and there was a woman that was sexually harassed. And the gentleman was on the stand and said, have a look at me. She should be impressed that I feel that way about her. And when you talk about people's communications, it's their understanding and what they think. And if you don't clarify that communication, what you're saying, I mean, he was stealing the ugly goods and selling them on the weekend at a market stall. He was making a mozza. The profit went down. He stole so much. And he thought it was unfair dismissal and wanted some compensation because he genuinely thought he had the best of that business. He said you can write it off on taxes, you don't have ugly stock, rah, rah. He thought he was giving them a benefit. And in his mind, what you say to somebody doesn't mean that they understand what you've said.
100%.
A teacher stands in front of 30 students. 3 people might be on the same page as the teacher. 27 others might be on 90, 80, 70, 50, 60, 30, 10%
exactly
of the page. Sometimes they're not even in the same book.
Absolutely.
So that's priceless, what you've said about that.
Yes, and it makes a huge difference to the success of a business and then them getting over that hump of being willing to launch, because then they know they've got their team in stride with them, right?
And your staff is your highest cost. So make that cost be a benefit to you.
What's your highest investment?
Exactly.
If you choose to make it an investment. Otherwise, it is a cost.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's an investment in your future and the business.
Absolutely. Because you cannot scale a business and grow a business without a team. So if you see your staff rather than as a cost, as an investment, and then how can you help that investment actually flourish and give you something back, because an investment should pay you, not just take money from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's like, what's the ROI on having
eventually
these staff?
Negative gearing gets to be positive.
Exactly. Through correct investment into them, and time and training and communication, and letting them know how they can win at the game of their job. Because most people don't know.
Our time is priceless, and it is.
Yes.
But don't think other people's time's less priceless.
That's right. Don't downgrade someone else's time just because you know, we have this whole levels of importance thing. It's like everyone's important.
Exactly.
Everyone's time's important. And to the individual person, it's the most important thing to them. They don't care about your time. They care about their time. Right? No matter what their level of role is or anything like that, you know. So I think that having a business owner that's really clear on their targets and their goals, and getting the engine room of their business working properly, which is their staff, through systems, processes, good communication, all of those things, that really helps businesses get out of this stalling. You call it failure to launch. It's a stalling on growth, because they're afraid, and there is a lot of fear in the market right now. But that is not a reason not to grow, because if you're not pushing for growth, that's more concerning for me, because as a market contracts, you want to grow. You don't want to contract with it. You want to, so your growth rate might be slower right now, but tides change, and you want to be ready to catch be on the surfboard, ready to catch the wave.
Exactly. And it's the same as putting all your eggs in one basket. You know, you might have a dozen eggs, that's great, but if your eggs were laid by a lot of different chickens and they were in all the different nests, if something happens to that big basket of eggs, you've still got the others to fall back on. And that's that expansion piece, and that's that growth piece, and that. And without people like Alison, I see so many businesses that take on a business coach, and 12 months' time, boom, it just blows up in a great way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does take, it's not a 5-minute job to get that. It takes time and working through all of the bits that might not be all cohesive towards the same, to the same outcome or to the same goal. You want everything running that. Exactly.
And everybody wants a different outcome. Somebody will say that they want, their business to grow. We're going to have a multinational. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I just want to have a local business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I used to do surfboards, and now I'm doing this, but we're going to grow it to here and get this and blah, blah, blah. So it's very, very different. So tell me a funny story that you've had that anybody can learn from. It can be about anything in the last, couple of years.
A funny story.
Ooh. Or somebody that did something that you both had a bit of a laugh at.
A funny story. Let me think of a funny story.
Or an educational one that will go, wow, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, look, I have, this is something that I can speak from growth of my own business and working with clients, is this is not a funny story. This would be a learn from experience.
That's fine.
Right? So, I mean, countless times, including mistakes of the past that I've made in growing my business, is outsourcing when you don't know anything about it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to do that job, so I'm going to outsource it. And the problem with that is that you have no way to know whether or not that company that you've outsourced to are doing a good job, a bad job, or control any part of that, right? So I've seen clients spend, I had one client before they came to me that spent $26,000 on with a marketing agency, and some marketing agencies are great, so this is not a diss on marketing agencies. Zero return on investment.
What?
Zero.
They didn't even get one sale or client?
Nope, zero return on investment. But what they'd done was they just didn't want to do it or learn any part of it, so they're going, you do it.
Oh,
and
okay.
they could pull the wool over their eyes. Well, again, it's like, but did that person actually go back to that company and say, hey, we're not performing, what's going on? Often people won't.
What can we do? Clearly that's not working for us.
And there was a 12-month contract. In 12 months, would you not go back? So if something's not working, go back to that company and ask why, get information. And I see that regularly when people outsource things.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's, people will wait. Oh, I don't want to impose on them. What, you're paying them to produce a result for you. So that would be my biggest thing, is if you choose to outsource things, which is totally fine, at some point you will outsource some things.
Yeah.
But you are still responsible for the result. At the end of the day, because you're the company owner. So if this outsourcing, wherever you're outsourcing it to and whatever you're outsourcing isn't working, find out why. Don't wait, right? Because what the heck are you paying for? And make sure there's an out in the contract. Because often in these they'll put in lock-in contracts. You've got to pay out the 12 months on different outsourcing things. So ensure there's an out.
See what works, yeah.
And like with marketing, right? Some things take time. So things like SEO and stuff like that. But far out.
Increase in brand awareness because they're launching a product, and you could see that their traffic to their website had gone from 10 a month to 117,000 a month, then that's a benefit. Even though it's not physical monetary, they got what they wanted. Brand awareness.
Right. They got brand awareness. Yeah. As long as you go and go into those things knowing exactly what you want to get out of them, and don't be afraid to fire people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, that would be my other thing, a lot of people are holding themselves hostage to their business because of their staff. Yeah. And they have all of their IP in one critical staff member, and they're not extracting any of that out onto paper, SOPs, written procedures, anything like that. And then that person starts to underperform, and they're so afraid to get rid of them. But that person is damaging their business and their brand. But as a business owner, you've relied on one person, and you have no system behind that.
Cyber hacker working for you. They've got all your IP, and you're up for ransom.
Exactly, pretty much. And that is in so many businesses. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Particularly at the moment, where people feel like they can't get good workers. But also, additionally, while someone won't work for a crappy boss, they're not going to go into a bad culture.
No.
So if you are keeping someone who is doing a terrible job, you're actually saying that's okay with everyone else.
And everybody who's doing a great job, I'll let them do anything because they know more, but they're a pain.
That's right. And then the good people start to lower their standard.
Or they leave.
Yes.
People don't... I used to say, people tell you how they feel about you with their feet. They walk out the front door.
100%. Or you'll see it in their performance, right?
Yeah.
The silent resignation, we're seeing it. We see it all the time, right? Where people have just kind of walked out of their job before they've walked out of their job.
They've stopped working. They've stopped turning up. Even at the Zoom call, they're, on their phone.
Yeah, they're somewhere else. Exactly. So, that they would be my tips, not funny stories, but tips. I probably have way more tips than I do have funny stories, because most...
And that's why you're in what you're in.
That's why I'm in what I'm in, because most people come to me because they've got a major problem going on.
Yeah.
We have many laughs along the way, but it's usually because they're trying to solve problems, and we're constantly solving problems. So I have way more problem solve stories for you than I do have hilarious stories, but they would be a couple of my tips.
Nice. Thank you so much for today. So if somebody wanted to contact you, what's the best way to contact you? On your website?
Website, thealisonwheelercoaching.com, or thealisonwheeler.com is my website, and my socials are the Alison Wheeler Coaching.
And if you want to look up Alison Wheeler Coaching, Alison's got a book out as well.
I do. It's on Amazon. You can either buy it on my website or on Amazon, Living from the Inside Out.
Nice. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you for having me.